this is Katie, and thank you for joining me on the My Senses, My Space podcast. And today I wanted to talk about your sense of should. And this can come in different forms. There is the shoulds that we feel we must do, and there are the shoulds that we expect to happen in our lives. So let's talk about the things that we kind of expect to happen. So let's go in a reverse order. When we are navigating through life and we come across things that we think, I want to put some emphasis on that from our perspective, we think is going to happen, and it doesn't go that way, it can be very hard to wrap our heads around, to understand what happened. If we're used to doing things a certain way and we're relying on someone else who may be unfamiliar to us or unfamiliar to the process, and they do something different, then we're like, well, where's the common sense in this? This is how it should be done, right? But the perspective comes from so many different angles, and there's so many ways of doing things, and there is no right way. There is no like, this is the way it should happen. Even when, you're like renewing your driver's license or something, there are steps you need to go through, right? There's like, then you do this, then you pick a number, then you get in line, then you get the picture taken, there's all these things that should happen. But in every single step of that, there's so many variances. You can go to a different department and it's done a little differently there. It's interesting when you arrive that day, what the circumstances are. Is the line short or is it long? Are they speeding up a certain process? Did they remove a part of the process? So even when we think of bureaucratic things, it often won't happen how it's pictured in our heads. And being open to that and saying, well, this was an experience I wasn't expecting. And trying to look at things objectively and saying, well, in my mind, I pictured it this way, and this is what actually happened. Isn't that interesting to compare those two scenarios? And how was I wrong? And how could I be wrong about things in the future? Not to get down on yourself, but to just go, isn't life interesting? Isn't it interesting how things change? Isn't it interesting that, I was just thinking here in Washington, we have enhanced driver's licenses. Speaking of driver's licenses, and I was just reading about how there is this something ID, I forgot the actual word, that a lot of other states are doing, and here in Washington we aren't. And I had to look it up. I'm like, what are we doing that everyone else isn't doing? And it's to be able to travel state to state and just be on the airplanes. And each state is different. Each state kind of does their own thing. And so us, among a couple other states, are doing this enhanced version. And other states are doing this, I think it's like a state ID. Anyway, I'm not too worried about what it's called. And I'm like, well, why are we doing it that way? Why isn't everything standardized? And then there's this need to go, well, the passport system is standardized. Why can't we follow that? But life is variances. Everything is done a little different in different areas of the world. And being flexible and open to how things happen is really kind of the excitement of life. And reminding us that we can be as prepared as we can, and still it can be different. It can be something we don't expect. Now, on the flip side of all of this is the expectation that we have of ourselves and what we feel we should be doing according to watching others in society. So I should keep my house clean. I should be organized. I should use a planner. I should meal plan. I should take care of my kids a certain way. Or, then I would be like everyone else. I should behave in a certain way. I should, and especially for neurodivergent families, like they can feel like, oh, well, everyone else kind of does it that way, but we do it this way. Should we be doing it like everyone else? And it can very much stem from, wanting to belong and wanting and comparing yourself to others, which is natural. That is an innate part of us, that we want to belong and that we want to connect with other people and follow what they're doing. If they're doing something a certain way, maybe they learned the best way to do it. But have they? Maybe, possibly, the way that you've come up with something is actually better than what other people have done. Better for you. Better for your situation, better for your family, better for your body, better for all these different variances, and saying like, hey, for me, it's better for me. For you, it's better for you. But still, there can feel like this obligation to perform, to step through things a certain way, to conform, to fall in line, to work extra hard, to meet the expectations of our family or loved ones. And it's hard. I'm not going to say that's easy, because we can learn that from a very young age, of especially those loved ones around us, that they expect something in a certain way, because that's how they were expected to do something higher up in their family, right? It's passed down. It's passed down. So how do we let that go a little bit? How do we let go of the grip of the shoulds? And it takes vulnerability. It takes that you may be stripped a little bit bare of what protects you and comforts you. And you're showing like, this works better for me. And when you do that, you're going to have people question if they are the type who observe and make comments about this. If they don't, they're not going to question. They're going to be like, great, good for you. I'm glad you found a way that works for you. But I know there's these expectations that hang over our heads sometimes because of people who watch and judge. And so for you, a boundary is not like, you can't do that to me anymore, right? That's not a boundary. A boundary is, if you do this, if you comment on how you're observing what I'm doing, then I will react this way, and there is a consequence to that. So if you comment on how I do the dishes, I will do this. And that is a really strong part of like, okay, that all I can do is react to what somebody else does. And if that also means less contact with someone or stepping away from someone or any of that, that is healthy for you to do. But even if they're not in the room, maybe if they're not even commenting, maybe they're not even seeing all this, sometimes it's unseen, these shoulds that we should be doing. We should be doing that. We're absorbing. We're looking at them from Instagram. We're absorbing, from societal imagery in Pinterest, in magazines, in social media and everything. And we're absorbing like, we should be doing that way if we're a good ... parent, wife, sister, anyone. Like you can just fill in your role. So how do we step back from that? First, sometimes it's best to not consume as much of that, or to consume media that contradicts that. I know for me, it helps so much to see accounts that really talk in the opposite direction of that and really say, like, look, you can do things your way. We're not going to follow what everyone else is doing, and just encourages and cheerleads like finding your own path. So that's part of the unlearning of it. And the next part is feeling solid and going, you know what, I'm going to try something different for myself. And I'm going to feel a little uncomfortable about it. And I'm going to feel a little vulnerable about it. And we're going to see what happens. So during that learning process, how can we say, yeah, you know, we're going to have a little time out from the shoulds and think about what we could replace that with. Maybe it's something that we haven't thought about before, that we haven't experienced before, and we're plugging in to our own voice and listening to that instead. And then what if there was less pressure? What if there was less feeling of being pulled in a direction that you really didn't feel like you wanted to be pulled in? What then? What could that be filled with? Is there joy? Is there rest? Is there being you? Is there enough of you to fill up that space and feel settled? That's a really good question. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you join me next time on the My Senses, My Space podcast.